Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, we're going to give everyone a couple more minutes to join into our meeting. And in the event that anyone has clicked into the wrong meeting, let me just give a message. Bienvenidos a nuestra Junta de la Comunidad. Tenemos dos reuniones al mismo tiempo, una en inglés y otra en español. Si prefiere escuchar esta presentación en español, puede ir al sitio web de nuestro distrito y hacer clic en el enlace en español www.santaritasschools.org. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us tonight for our town hall in English. There is a simultaneous town hall being conducted in Spanish as well at the same time.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Donna Koenig, a proud principal of Gavilan View Middle School in the Santa Rita Union School District. We want to let you know that this presentation is being recorded, and we want to appreciate you and thank you for coming today. The purpose of this meeting is to inform you of the upcoming events as we move to our phased in-person instruction plan. This meeting will not take any longer than 2 hours. If you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A box. We will be monitoring those questions and answering them at the end of this presentation. Questions can also be entered by emailing the district at stakeholder@santaritaschools.org. I'd like to introduce our panelists tonight. Mrs. Nadine Dermody, Director of Student Support Services, Mr. Chuck Helm, Director of Nutritional Services, Mrs. Gail Spencer, Principal of Folsom Knolls Middle School, Mr. Mike Mushnick, Principal of McKinnon Elementary, Ms. Nicole Jensen, Coordinator of Educational Technology, Dr. Denise Estrella, Mrs. Heather Baumgartner, Principal of New Republic Elementary, and I want to introduce Miss Melissa Alderman, our new Superintendent of Santa Rita Union School District. Ms. Alderman.
Thank you, Donna Koenig. I'm happy to be here as the new superintendent. I've been with the Santa Rita Union School District for 6 years now, first as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and then as Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. I am joyful to be the superintendent of this wonderful school district as we move forward. We've always been sort of the small district who could, and we're now becoming the small district who can and does on a daily basis for the betterment of all of our students with purpose and equity and safety. So thanks for joining us tonight for this town hall. Again, Ms. Koenig mentioned that you can put your questions in the Q&A. We've also have some questions that were submitted early, so we'll go through those at the end of the presentation as well. So for our agenda tonight, we're going to talk about the status of COVID-19, particularly in our Santa Rita community, the vaccination plan for SRUSD staff, some basic information about Senate Bill AB 86, which is the newest guidance we received from the California legislature, the SRUSD plan and goals for our optional in-person learning experience for the spring, and then what future instruction during spring and summer will look like for our Santa Rita students and families.
Thank you. As we all know, it's been a trying time the last last year. It is exciting to know that as of Tuesday, March 16th, our county has been moved to the red tier. That is absolutely wonderful news. We want to make sure everybody practices safe social distancing and continues to do that, wearing a mask and being safe. As we do know that our 93906 zip code is been historically the second highest in the county for COVID counts. So that is our Santa Rita community. So Santa Rita community, we don't want to be in the hot spot anymore. So let's make sure we continue to practice safe social distancing, wearing a mask, let's continue to try to stay in the red tier and move to those other colors. We don't want to go back to the purple.
We've had a lot of opportunities for our Santa Rita staff, both classified and certificated, to get their first round of the vaccine through partnerships with the Monterey County Office of Education, as well as a partnership where we conducted an on-site clinic with the support of Clínica de Salud. And we held that clinic at Bolsonaro Middle School, where a lot of our staff were able to receive their first dose of vaccine. We were also able to help some of our neighboring districts get their staff vaccinated as well. I do want to thank our district nurse, Elizabeth Simmelman, and our HR director, Becky Moore, and our director of student services, Nadine Dermody, for working so hard and diligently to allow us to have an in-house clinic for our staff. I want to talk about having the opportunity for our staff to be vaccinated. This has been at the forefront of our planning, and it's our commitment to our Santa Rita staff to ensure their safety, to make sure that when we welcome our students back, that our staff have all had the opportunity to receive a vaccine. And so we're in the middle of accomplishing that. Tentatively, all of our staff will have had an opportunity to be fully vaccinated by April 26th. And by fully vaccinated, I mean have received their second vaccine, as well as the 2-week recommended wait period for the full efficacy of that vaccine to take effect for them. So that's been very important for us as we've gone through this past year together as the Santa Rita Union staff. And so one of the things that's important to note, even though we're working diligently to make sure that our staff have the opportunity to receive a vaccine, maintaining strong safety precautions and our social distancing, those will continue to maintain the safety of our students, our parents, and the rest of the community as we engage with them. It's essential that we have all of these things in place, and we'll go through and talk about some of the measures that we'll have in place on our school sites to ensure your students' safety, as well as yours if you visit us while we take care of your students. So recently, the California legislature has passed Senate Assembly Bill 86. So one of the things that the AB 86 allows for is some additional funding if schools reopen based on their tier. Now we've just moved into the red tier, as Ms. Koenig mentioned. And that means that we would be obligated to serve more students than we would have been able to in the purple tier, which was pretty limited to very small groups of students. Now, what this does is we've had some COVID-19 relief and school reopening reporting public health requirements that are also associated with Assembly Bill 86. And so the governor approved this March 5th. We've put a link here in case you'd like to go through and read AB 86. I know some of you do, and so please feel free to do that. But just to do some summary information for you, it's the intent of the legislature that local educational agencies offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible during the 2020-21 school year. In-person instruction may include hybrid models that offer fewer than 5 days per week of in-person instruction for students. And instructional focus for when we offer that optional in-person instruction may focus on academic and/or socio-emotional support. Now, one of the things to note about AB 86 and Governor Newsom's most recent announcements about that funding is it requires a much earlier start date than would be safe for us if we are concerned with making sure that our staff have had the opportunity to receive a full vaccine. So as we go through our tentative planning dates, please keep in mind that our tentative dates for welcoming our students back on campus is after that April 26th date, in which we know that by then our staff have had the opportunity to receive the vaccine and the 2-week wait period for efficacy. So Donna and I are kind of looking at each other right now about whose slide is this. So I'm going to say it's mine.
Thank you. I think I was muted. And that is so important. And Santa Rita has really focused on the safety first as we go through this COVID pandemic. ensuring all facilities moving into our social distancing in class, that we're going to ensure all facilities will meet the California Department of Health guidelines. As students return, students and staff will be assessed once they enter the campus for the COVID-19 symptoms. Students and staff will wear masks. Desks and chairs will be at least 6 feet away to ensure appropriate social distancing. Hand washing will be reviewed so the students know how long they need to wash their hands, make sure that everything is clean and free of any available COVID germs on them. Again, as we go into in-person instruction, it is to allow for social distancing. Students must be divided into weekly or bi-weekly groups. Having all of our students at once on campus, we're just not there yet with our numbers of COVID in our area. Transportation, due to social distancing requirements on buses, transportation will be extremely limited and as we go forward in our May and summer programs. Santa Rita School District's COVID-19 county approved safety plan will be adhered by to all staff. It's very exciting that the board has approved that as of this week, actually, March 15th, teachers can start proposing activities for students to come on campus in small cohorts. Activities must have social distancing plan approved by site administrators and our district nurse. Examples of these activities include projects possibly in the science garden, promotion photos, or other science projects. And again, those will be pre-approved plans to ensure all safety protocols are in place. And May 3rd, our in-person option and offer for students to return to campus will be limited capacity, but it's a great opportunity for our students. Summer of 2021 is rolling out our summer academy in a hybrid model and distance only model. Very exciting things coming up.
Okay, just to walk you through what a sample schedule might look like for the optional in-person instruction time that we can have on campus in the month of May, basically. Right now, this is a draft, but it might look like what we're offering. So for the month of May, would be morning session distance learning for all students, so with their current teacher. And then in the afternoons, so after lunchtime, we would be able to have small groups of students in classes at all grade levels, potentially. And based on the percentage of parents who want to opt for this in-person instruction, we would have students on campus a minimum of 1 day per week and a maximum of 2. All of course, depending on the number of parents who want to take this opportunity. Now, I do want to just give you an honest take on this, and we understand as a district that having this optional in-person experience right now is not necessarily going to be convenient or feasible for all of our families. So please know that we will be maintaining our strong distance learning only programming. And if you opt to engage in only distance learning for the month of May and just complete your school year that way, while those students who are on campus for that engagement each week, your students will have an equitable opportunity for engagement in a similar type in the online setting from your home. Now, what that might look like, we'll get into those kinds of activities next, about the sorts of engaging things that your students would be experiencing on campus and why we're offering this kind of learning, with a steady goal of getting our hybrid model going for our summer academy starting the second week in June.
Excellent. So starting May 3rd, that optional choice for students to return to campus. In-person instruction will take place in the afternoon after the morning sessions of distance learning program. The focus and goals of these afternoon programs will be available both in person and remotely. We will be providing social emotional support and character counts activities, academics aligned to standards, interventions and enrichments, acclimating students to the school environment, and providing collaboration time with peers and adults. Tomorrow, March 19th, students, families will be provided a survey, and that survey will go out. Also, we'll make phone calls for those parents that aren't able to do the survey online. We will be doing a survey goal as 100% of the district is surveyed. And we will be asking students' names, grade, school of attendance. Do you have siblings in the Santa Rita School District? And if so, what are the grades in the other schools that they attend? And then the question, yes, May 3rd, I would like my child to attend the afternoon session of in-person learning after this distance learning program. Or you could select no, my students will remain in the distance learning program only. Please look out tomorrow afternoon for that survey to go out and follow-up phone calls from our staff, teachers that are going to be reaching out to you for helping answer those questions.
So I know that a major question for people right now is why are we not going ahead and starting with our full hybrid model, which we had asked people before the start of the school year if you wanted to be in cohort A, B, or C. And so I kind of want to let everybody know that our goal is to start our hybrid model for Summer Academy. And if we did it now, I cannot guarantee that anyone's child would have the same teacher or the same schedule for the remaining weeks of the school year. And we had our LCAP meeting about a week ago, and many of the parents expressed concerns that their child would be changing teachers this late in the school year. But if we were to institute that, then it's definite that a lot of students would be shifted to different teachers. And so that's of a major concern to many of our parents this late in the school year to be doing a major shift. By doing the model that we're talking about, where students are still engaging in distance learning in the morning and then coming in for that optional afternoon, it still guarantees that daily time with the teacher that they've known and loved all school year. And then perhaps in the afternoon, they would be engaging with a different teacher, and what they're doing is really acclimating to campus and doing some of those socio-emotional activities. Now, when we move to Summer Academy, and this is pretty usual for Summer Academy, that our students who experience this as an option, they don't have the same teacher a lot of times that they had for the school year. And so because they're matriculating up to the next grade level. And if we hold up and do our hybrid model for Summer Academy, we can get those kind of on-campus experiences to a larger variety. We will, and I know some of you engaged with our Summer Academy a couple of years ago that was pretty dynamic, where we did all kinds of amazing things. So we didn't just focus on academic remediation, though that was a major part of what we did. We did some pretty engaging activities, and we found out that a lot of our teachers have some pretty amazing skill sets, things like cake decorating, different kind of graphic design, geometry through art, things like that, that were pretty amazing. And we will attempt to do as many of those awesome and engaging ideas that we can with all of our social distancing and safety measures. So it may look a little different. We may be offering slightly different kinds of things, but we're certainly going to put our best thinking caps on when it comes to what sort of enriching activities we can offer students, as well as those academic supports to help shore up any learning loss they may have experienced with distance learning this year. So looking at this, I wanted to talk to you about our Summer Academy. And as always, that's an option for parents to take advantage of. I know a lot of you might want to just take a break from school this summer. I understand. So it's going to be about a 6-week program starting June 7th, ending July 16th. And I wanted to point out that we have no intention to change the current school year calendar. I know that was one of our parent questions that was emailed to us. So last day of school for students is still May 27th for the 2021 school year. Now, so Summer Academy, we're looking at having 2 possible options. Again, you will have the chance to opt for the distance learning only. So then your student is engaging from the comfort of their own home or wherever you have them learning away from campus. Or the hybrid option, where students would come in either as learning group A on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then have asynchronous learning on Wednesdays and Thursdays, or they would be learning group B and have their asynchronous learning on Monday, Tuesday, and come to campus on Wednesday, Thursday. Now, Being able to dismiss after lunch at about 12:30 allows us to disinfect those campuses and classrooms and workspaces daily. So that's one of the reasons we could do this back to back on days as instead of our original hybrid where we had Wednesdays scheduled as a deep cleaning day. We would be able to facilitate more cleaning this way because we're dismissing a little earlier in the day. So I just want to put that out there, and not to overburden everyone with surveys. I will wait until after we get our May choice survey out before I send this survey, but you'll expect a Summer Academy sign-up survey as well, so that we can get our teachers and staff planning those dynamic activities, whether it's going to be online or if you're going to send your students for the hybrid model.
I love our summer programs. Our next steps going forward is, again, tomorrow,
Parent surveys for the in-person May option will be going out. We'll be collecting that data and begin building the in-person grade level groups. We will start instructional planning meetings with our teachers and administrators. We will be reviewing the contracts with the classified and certified employees. And we will start planning that summer amazing program academy that Ms. Alderman just spoke about. I believe we've already had some emailed questions in, as you said prior, regarding the from our stakeholders email. And I think there's a few of those that we could answer now. So Ms. Alderman, will it still be like the cohort schedule that was made that we did back at the beginning of the school year?
No, and because I think that we're going to need to revise the cohort choices for teachers and parents. A lot of people may have changed their mind by now. It's been about 8 months. And so that's one of the reasons we want to send that new survey out tomorrow. A lot of people feel differently than they did this time 8 months ago. And I think it's important that we go ahead and resurvey everybody.
Excellent. And how are we planning to keep social distancing and sanitation with students and staff going forward?
Okay, so we have our social distancing in classrooms, school site facilities where students are present. Those kind of areas are going to be sort of reconfigured to encourage and maintain reasonable physical distancing between teachers and students. Classrooms, restrooms, workspaces are cleaned, disinfected daily. Those are per requirements of Monterey County Health Department right now. We're doing different kinds of things like designating one-way walk areas and, those kinds of things so that as students are between, the passing in the hallways or going to the restroom, that they're able to maintain that physical distancing when they're moving around campus as well.
and we have a question in that somebody asked is about lunch and
Breakfast, will we be providing any lunches or breakfast during these programs?
So our amazing food services department will continue to provide meals for families to pick up. And we're looking at for our on-campus activities for that last month of school that we'll try to be able to integrate an afternoon snack. And so we're working with food services on how best to facilitate that. And that would maybe give students some time, if we can do our social distancing, to remove that mask as well and get a little bit of a comfort break from that, because we know it's pretty challenging for some of our, especially our youngest learners.
And we have a question, will you have any type of barriers like plexiglass in the classrooms?
So we've ordered the barriers for the student desk and tables, and they're coming in now. So those will all be in place in our classrooms before we welcome our students back on campus.
Another question we have, what procedure will be taken in the event that a student and or staff member comes to school with COVID-19 symptoms?
So staff or students who exhibit symptoms will be sent home is the most straightforward answer. So our students will be moved to an isolation area, and this is a requirement of the state health department that each campus have an isolation area for them to receive care while they wait for parent guardian pickup.
And I think we already answered this question, but will students be on campus for the May program at least 2 days a week?
Minimum 1 per week. And then based on the number of parents who want to take advantage of the opportunity, up to 2 days a week.
And are students going to be able to keep their same class schedules for the morning?
So what we're trying to do is make sure that we maintain that relationship between students and teachers. And the only way that we can do that is to continue our distance learning in the morning. And then they may likely engage with a different teacher in the afternoon for the in-person, though some of them may still have their current teacher.
And I think that actually answers our next question. If May schedule for on campus is less than a whole day, will distance learning full-time still be an option?
Definitely. So distance learning right now is going to continue as an option for our families for the remainder of the school year and summer academy. I can tell you right now that we do not have guidance as of yet about what our 21-22 school year will look like. And we're waiting on that guidance from the state now. And that may be a later question that I answered early, but
We are figuring these things out as we find out more guidance.
Yeah.
And bus transportation for students. Will there be bus transportation? And if so, how will buses be cleaned and students be distanced?
it's a good question. And the requirement for how we socially distance students on a bus and the cleaning in between groups of students on a bus actually are what is going to limit our bus capacity, especially this spring, until that guideline changes or lessens to some degree, and it's proven that it's safe to have more students on a bus. Right now, the number of bus routes that it would take to get our current number of students to campus is not feasible. If we were to run our early morning routes with the limited capacity where we're able to socially distance students on a bus by 6 feet and cleaning in between routes, that would mean our students, our last group of students wouldn't arrive to campus until after about 11 a.m. on a regular day. So we're going to work with our families the best we can to provide as much transportation as we safely can. But I just want to give an honest answer and say it is going to be very limited, because to do otherwise is to create a situation that's unsafe per the guidelines that we must follow, or it would create an impossible situation where we cannot get students to campus in a timely manner or home in a timely manner.
I know those were our prior questions. Oh, no, we have one more there.
Yeah.
Will the students have an option to continue distance learning? That's right. I think you touched on this one, but
for the 21-22 school year, yeah, we still haven't received guidance from CDE, but SRUSD is exploring the expansion of a virtual distance learning option for the upcoming school year, regardless of the guidance that we have in place. And so we don't know like what the instructional minute requirements and things will transition back to. It changed a little bit temporarily for this year. And so we're kind of waiting on that sort of guidance from CDE right now.
let's hope that red tier just keeps going and getting better. Are the students required to get a COVID vaccine in order to attend school?
It's a great question, and we get asked this a lot. So currently, vaccines are being recommended for those 16 and older, and there has been no indication yet that vaccines will be required for students. And absolutely, we will inform families if that changes. And so, you know, because there are different vaccination requirements for students when they enter school and things like that. And so as of yet, there's been no indication that COVID-19 vaccines would be required for students, but we'll keep you informed if we hear anything otherwise.
Great, and those were quite a few of our prior questions that were emailed into us. And again, our audience can email stakeholder@santaritaschools.org if you have questions going forward. But I think we have some more questions from the audience tonight. Ms. Baumgardner, do you have any questions for Ms. Alderman?
We are monitoring the Q&A right now, and we have several questions related to summer school, including who is eligible for summer school and which campuses will host summer school.
That's a good question. So Summer Academy is never about eligibility. It's about your choice. So we welcome as many students who are interested in attending our Summer Academy, whether online or in the hybrid. And then we actually build our capacity based around how many parents opt for Summer Academy. So a couple of years ago, we weren't able to do it last summer because everything was closed down. But the year before, we hosted our Summer Academy at Bolsonals and La Jolla only. And we based that around the number of students who had submitted that they wanted to be in Summer Academy. This year, we'll continue to build from that capacity based on the number of families who opt for Summer Academy in person. And we can expand out to all of our schools if we need to.
Thank you. We also have a question about I think we may have already answered it, but just to clarify, will siblings be accommodated, or can siblings be accommodated to come in person on the same days?
So absolutely, the survey, we're going to ask whether or not you have siblings and what campuses they're on, because we'd like to help facilitate that as much as absolutely possible, just for the convenience of parents. And I just want to go ahead and say, I realize that having an afternoon session is not going to be the most convenient option for many of our parents. However, since distance learning is scheduled already to take place in the morning, and changing and disrupting that schedule for the students may be a bit more disruptive than doing the alternative engagement in the afternoon. And I do want to remind everybody that we will shift our afternoon focus to do those enrichment activities with our distance learning students as well, to provide equitable services for those learning from home.
Great. Ms. Baumgartner, do we have any other questions?
Yes, we have questions about, will we have any organized sports resuming?
We do not have plans right now for sports resuming this spring, though we do have some interest from our physical education department on what sort of outdoor and engaging sports activities they can provide during Summer Academy. I know they're already thinking ahead what sorts of games or structured sports can be developed for our Summer Academy to get our students moving outdoors and engaging with each other safely.
And then we have a question about air filters. What kind of air filters do we have on our facilities?
So right now, we are upgrading all of our HVAC to take the MERV 13 filter. So CDE was recommending the MERV 8 filters or HEPA filter at one point, and then with the further development and recommendation of the higher level MERV 13 filters. Now we're able to go ahead and use those in a lot of our HVAC systems, but some of the older units, they need a little bit of retrofitting or a custom MERV 13 filter to be integrated into the system to give us the highest level of protection and increased filtered air circulation for our classrooms. So those units that are requiring some retrofit are being worked on right now by our Department of Maintenance, Operation, and Transportation and Facilities.
Thank you. We have several questions asking about our plans in case there is a spike again in COVID rates.
So right now, I know Ms. Koenig talked to you about the fact that we just recently, within the last couple of days, have moved into the red tier, which is the lower level tier and it's based on the number of new cases in the county and different rates that counties are required to send to the state to be designated as a different tier. If we move back into the purple tier, we have guidelines from CDE about whether or not we need to do a short-term closure to allow for a quarantine period. And we're certainly prepared to implement that in the event that we do have an outbreak.
Social distancing, it's really important. Ms. Baumgartner, did you see any other questions from our audience or comments?
I'm looking through and trying to find some common threads. So we have questions about, can kids wear their own masks?
Definitely. So we have ordered some face masks for our students, and those are for you to be able to have 3 extra washable face masks. We did the same thing for our staff. And so it's just for you to have an option if you're running low or you just needed to integrate some more into your students' new wardrobe. We have those available for all of our students, even the tiniest ones at the preschool. So yes, definitely. We know that a lot of our students, they have their own mask. They've grown accustomed to those and they're much more comfortable with those. And most certainly, we would want our students to be able to feel the most comfortable they possibly can with their face covered with a mask.
Then we're getting several questions about schedules. When can we anticipate knowing what the schedule would look like for distance learning in the morning and in-person learning in the afternoon?
So when we send out our survey, we'll send out sample elementary and middle school schedule with that to help you make a more informed choice. For this presentation, it was a little more complicated. So when we do it, you'll be able to see what an elementary schedule might look like and what a middle school schedule would look like with the times in there, so that you would be able to do that. Right now, we wanted to kind of just keep it really simple for people to understand that the afternoon engagement would be happening after lunch. So probably, 12:30, 1 o'clock. Right now is what we're ballparking for our students. There might be a difference for elementary versus middle school, partly because we know you might need to take some students to an elementary and then to a middle school or vice versa. So we need to make sure that everyone has ample travel time as well as time to have lunch and be on campus, and then what we can do to help families who need to pick up a lunch from us.
Thank you. We also have several questions about our special education students. Will they still have access to summer academy and in-person learning opportunities?
Absolutely. So our goal is always to provide equitable services for our special education students. And our special education team will, as always, work very diligently with our families to determine the best individual education plan for our students for the remainder of the school year and over summer, based on their needs and what we're offering.
Thank you. And then for families who choose to keep their students distance, will they still have access to the same opportunities that are happening in person?
Absolutely. It might look a little different because it's going to be facilitated online, but our goal would be, as we reconnect with students on campus and get them acclimated, kind of engage in some of those socio-emotional character counts kind of activities, that we're able to simultaneously offer those same kinds of learning opportunities for our students online. Right now, the spring is really all about sort of transitioning our students back to campus the best that we can, knowing that we're still not 100% sure about what the fall is supposed to look like. We haven't gotten that guidance yet. So our goal is really on how we can acclimate our students to the best of our ability to feeling comfortable coming back on campus and engaging in full-time learning with us in person.
Then we have several questions too. Can we expect to have either 5th or 8th grade promotion ceremonies or activities?
So I do know that our 4 elementary schools and our 2 middle schools, I just saw Ms. Koenig smile, are already planning ways that we can do our promotion activities. It's really important, especially for those students who they haven't been on campus for a year now, to be able to engage. I know I had a grandmother ask about her 8th grader. Are they going to be able to have some time on campus to meet their teacher that they've worked with all year and those kinds of things? And that's very important to us. I know a lot of people are asking about the May 3rd date in particular. So our staff will have their second round of vaccine through our clinic April 8th. The 2-week window for ensuring efficacy of the vaccine puts us at April 22nd. So the following Monday would be April 26th. And then, so Monday, May 3rd was just another week out. Now, I will tell you that starting this Monday, and it started, we've begun engaging small groups of students on campus for activities now. And so as teachers start doing those plans, getting those approved by their principal and their summelman, I'm sure that many more students will be engaged in different kinds of activities on campus, whether it's the science garden or coming in for some of those promotion activities and those sorts of things. So we'll start seeing more students on campus in April. But so I know we were asked why May 3rd, and I kind of just want to reiterate that our activities in May are simply the launching point for what we're doing over the summer. There's no perfect answer to this, and I realize that some of our neighboring districts are opening with different models, different calendars, different provisions. But our particular zip code has been steadily in the highest rated area for COVID and for outbreaks throughout this whole time. That we were in the purple. You could say we were in the dark purple. And so I do know that some of our neighboring districts have not had that same kind of infection rate as we have. And we take that very seriously, and we work with our labor unions and our administration and our groups to ensure that we are doing things safely and with purpose. I do not want to do any kind of programming too soon in a disorganized fashion. I think that's a disservice to students and families. And so we are going slow, and we're going slow to go smart. So it's essential to understand that we are well aware what our other neighbors are doing. And we are making this plan based on what we feel is the best and safest for Santa Rita.
Thank you. That addressed several questions. Another question we're getting is for the survey, how much flexibility will families have once they choose their cohort?
So for those last few weeks of school, there won't be flexibility with your choice. You would have an opportunity to change your option before Summer Academy. We'll have that 1 week break before we integrate for Summer Academy. So it may help families to make a better choice or a different choice for what they want for their Summer Academy based on had they chosen distance learning only, but by the time we are opening Summer Academy, they'd like to do the hybrid. It gives a little bit of window of opportunity for people to change.
We have a question about vaccines. Are our staff members mandated to be vaccinated?
The state of California is not currently requiring that teachers or school staff be vaccinated. And so we are not requiring that. We have provided the opportunity for all of our staff to receive a vaccine. And it really comes down to a personal and private choice.
Ms. Baumgartner, do you see any other questions from our audience?
I am scanning the Q&A and I believe they've been answered, but we are still monitoring.
I actually see one. Let me while you're scanning. We have a 5th grader asking, will we be able to play on the playground with our friends?
Well, that's going to be a challenge, but I can absolutely tell you that I have some PE teachers who are ready to start doing some activities with students. We don't know yet what that will look like, but they're trying to work that out, how we can engage students safely. For instance, like playground equipment would be a challenge because we're not really able to wipe down and disinfect all of that between student use. So that may pose a challenge, but there are certainly other activities for like recess and sports that we could implement that get students out and moving and engaged together safely. So we'll do that. I did see a question, I think it came in an email earlier about what about students who have a challenge keeping their mask on? From sensory issues, or they're just little and, it's uncomfortable. So, it's sort of a multi-pronged approach, right? So there's some educational pieces that we're committed to doing for helping students wear the mask or a face shield if that's better for them, that they're able to do that. We'll certainly work individually with families to try to rectify that because it's essential that we still have the mask mandate. And so we're required to have some sort of face covering, either a mask or a face shield for those who can't. There's, of course, separate provisions for if they've got a medical condition that precludes them from wearing a mask or a face shield. And so those will be handled on a case-by-case basis. We'll work with families to the best of our ability, and whether or not it's more feasible to move a student back to distance learning because it is becoming too much of an issue, we'll work with our families on that individually as that issue arises. I think we already talked about the air filters, right, in our HVAC system.
Yes, there is a question about how often that air filter will be changed out. And I think we're doing it more frequently than the state requires.
We are doing it more frequently than the state requires, and I don't want to give an exact answer. My director of MOTF is over in our Spanish meeting, but that's certainly something that we will post with our slides, the answers to the questions that we've given in this meeting. And I can certainly go and give you a very distinct and honest answer about how often those filters are being changed. I just don't want to say it erroneously right now.
We have a question. We have several questions about inter-district transfers. Are they still an option for this upcoming school year?
Yes.
And then we have another question about the small cohorts that come on campus in April. I know we talked a little bit about it, but just in case, how are those cohorts or those little small groups of children chosen?
So really that's a teacher and staff driven activity. I do know like we have some science teachers who what they're doing is they're seeing only, or they're opening it up to their classes, and they're welcoming a certain number of students at a time. And it's parent choice whether or not to engage in the activity on campus, to bring the student to campus for that activity. And so they're opening it up for their class, finding out how many would want to come on campus and whether that they need to have one group or two based on the number that they're able to keep distance while doing the activity, if that makes sense. So an example might be one of Ms. Koenig's science teachers, if they wanted to have an activity in the science garden. And if they normally have a class of 30 students and only half that class is interested in engaging in the activity in person, that teacher may divide that group up into two and see them on two separate occasions so that she can have, 7 students and 8 students socially distanced in the garden completing that activity. Would be a pretty concrete example.
I think the rest of our questions deal mostly with our protocols and plans for screening students, and then what happens if we have an outbreak. But I do think we talked about those already.
I do, but I'll reiterate in case somebody joined a little bit later. So we have in our safety plan, and it's posted on our website, the county health department outlines for what we do. So the adults, when we arrive to work, we all do a self-screening, and we indicate that we're symptom-free. And if we're not symptom-free, then we go home and we let our administrator know that we have some symptoms, and we're given a series of follow-up steps that we need to take with our healthcare provider to determine what we need to do. Now, when our students enter campus, we're going to be doing the temperature checks. Our staffs are doing things like the ingress and egress on school sites, making sure that we have multiple designated entrances to minimize the number of students coming in at one time so that we can do those temperature checks. We can look for anyone with symptoms. We will certainly send out a list of symptoms for parents to be able to do a self-check before sending a child to school. And so that will just help. And then if symptoms develop later throughout the day, every campus is required to have what's called an isolation area, but please don't think we're going to send your child to go sit by themselves. We have additional PPE that our health aides and staff will put on to be able to distribute care to your child while they're waiting for you to pick them up. And we'll have a list of things and protocols that you can work with your healthcare provider on, whether or not it's a quarantine period, a COVID test, things like that.
And then inquiring minds want to know, will we be able to have volunteers on campus?
Our hope is that we would be able to have volunteers by summer, but there are some certain provisions and assurances that we need to get cleared by the health department before we have volunteers. It's a great question, and we miss our volunteers. And so that's a great question. And we're working with our health department on what that might look like and what we would need to have in place before we welcome our volunteers back. And we'll definitely keep everyone posted on that.
And then our other questions involve, will teachers have extra support in their classrooms, not volunteers? And then what size cohorts can we expect for in-person learning opportunities?
So what we have in it's called the COVID safety plan. That's approved by the county health department. We have elementary cohorts, so grades K through 3, I believe. Our cohorts are 12 students at a time, and then our upper grades are 14 students. A lot of that had to do with the way seating is arranged in different classrooms, the way classrooms are sized at our different campuses. And so we went through campuses and determined how many students would be able to fit in a classroom, socially distanced, 6 feet in every direction. And so we walked around with a lot of tape measures and tape and marked things off. Donna's nodding her head. We did a lot on her campus. To measure that out. And so a lot of our teachers, for instance, they're choosing either to have some of the seating removed from their classroom, or some prefer just to keep all the seating in the classroom and designate assigned seating for their students. And that's kind of a teacher preference on that. And then if we have a classroom of primary grade students and they have tables, limiting how many students sit at a table with that distancing measure in place, and our plexiglass barriers.
And I think I saw a question about lunch trays being sanitized once we move forward to having those lunch trays instead of the grab and goes. And I'm sure that Chuck Helm would say absolutely.
I am positive that Chuck Helm would say if we go back to using our lunch trays and we're required to do that they are absolutely sanitized before students reuse them, and they already are.
I'm looking through them, and it seems to me that we covered all of them. If we missed any, would it be appropriate to ask them to email us at stakeholder@santaritaschools.org?
Absolutely. I think that's a great suggestion. If we want to make sure everybody's questions are answered, and we can actually reply individually to that person if need be, or contact them.
I know you asked about teachers having additional assistance in classroom. We will do that to the greatest extent possible, but a lot of our staff also help offer child care supervision for our staff members who are doing distance learning or hybrid model. So we've got limited resources that we'll try to do to the best of our ability. And if anybody joined us late, I just want to point out, for the remainder of this school year and through Summer Academy, you will have the option of remaining on full distance learning. For the remainder of this school year, you have optional small cohort activities that will be taking place at school sites through the month of April, as teachers develop those things and want to work with students or staff, or as we have different activities coming up like promotion photos and things like that for our outgoing 8th graders. And then in the month of May, the afternoon engagement, and then starting in July, our hybrid model, 2 days synchronous in person, 2 days asynchronous, and we'll alternate groups. We'll have daily cleaning because we'd be ending our Summer Academy about 12:30. And you'd also have the option to do a distance learning only Summer Academy as well.
Thank you. Ms. Baumgartner, I think we've hit a lot of our questions already, or do you see any others that we haven't touched base on before we move to our closing?
I see one here. Will this PowerPoint, will this slide presentation be available for them to review?
It will. And we'll be adding to our frequently asked questions. So we will add some of the additional questions that we were asked and answered in this session, so that you'll kind of have that to reference.
So in closing, I believe we have some closing steps of we are making sure that we're going to get that survey out to our families tomorrow. So look for that. And if families have a hard time filling out that survey online, we will also be calling those and contacting those family members. Safety is our highest priority for Santa Rita Union School District. And we want to make sure that our strong distance learning program continues with our same homeroom teachers as we move to the in-person in May. And the social-emotional status of our students is also extremely important as we move forward because we just love our students and want to make sure everybody's safe and have an opportunity for in-person, but also remain with those teachers that they have a relationship with on the distance learning program. Ms. Alderman, do you have any closing statements?
I don't. Please know that if your question wasn't directly answered or if you missed something, we're going to take a little bit of time after this and add to our frequently asked questions, those that we've gone through. I know some of you in the bottom of the chat was mentioning, I may have missed it. I think you covered it earlier, but we can't really go back in our slideshow, but we'll post that so that you can go back through. We'll add to our questions before we do that so that you have the answers that we have given today. A lot more, I know some very specific questions about the schedule. Please know that we'll send that with our survey tomorrow. I want you to be able to make an informed choice for the spring. And I want you to also know what summer looks like. And I'm well aware some of you may want to take a break from school for the summer, but please know that we will do an amazing summer academy as we always do for our SRUSD students. And I know I've talked to both of my middle schools about whether or not we can go ahead and integrate our outgoing 8th graders to some extent in our summer academy this year. We don't usually, but because we're about to send them on to high school and we haven't seen them in person in a year, there certainly may be some methods where we can integrate our outgoing 8th graders as well, so that we can kind of make sure they're ready to the best extent possible for their high school experience. We work pretty closely with the high school district and how to matriculate our students successfully there. And so we'll certainly do whatever we can for those students as well.
Excellent. We want to thank everybody for attending. And again, at stakeholder at santaritasschools.org is another way to submit a question. And we will be posting this video and PowerPoint presentation on our district website. So we want to thank everybody for attending. Thank you to all of our panelists. And we also have the Spanish version that will be posted as well. So much appreciated. Have a safe rest of the week and continue to practice safe social distancing so we can get these kids full-time back on campus.